We are live in
Love Facebook.
where a number of people
The opportunity to share.
she's one of our own. It has been
They aren't like
parts of your story that's awesome. You found healing. You found,
until I got sober.
can't wait for her to share that. I hate to know the different aspects of your story and what. Awesome.
Right.
Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Rooted Recovery Stories. My name is Patrick Custer. I'm your host, and we're so glad you're here no matter how you found us. We hope that you get something very powerful out of our story and guest speaker today that we are sharing with you. And I'm so excited once again to be bringing you someone who's got a very impactful story. And I've had the pleasure of knowing for a few years in this wonderful recovery community of Nashville, Tennessee. So, Bryant, thank you so much for being on our show today and getting vulnerable to share your story on this platform.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. I'm excited to be here and glad to be able to share my story and help out any way I can.
Absolutely. Well, with that, let's kick it off. I'll hand the floor over to you wherever you want to start.
All right. Thanks, Patrick. Again, my name is Bryant. I'm born and raised here in Nashville, Tennessee, 33 years old. I've been sober now for about a little more than 3.5 years. Sobriety date is February 22nd, 2017. By the grace of God, I'm sitting here sober today and hope to make it through today and on to tomorrow. But I'll get into my story of how I got there, kind of what it was like, what happened, what it's like now. But it's been a long journey, but a fun one nonetheless. And it all kind of begins for me here in Nashville. I was born technically in Antioch, it's just right outside of Nashville. 3 older brothers, I'm the youngest of 4, and we grew up kind of, in a not well off, but at the same time, we didn't necessarily want or need for anything, even though I felt like I needed more. But I didn't realize that till later on. My 2 oldest brothers are actually half brothers. We all have the same mom, different dad. And so there was some of that kind of growing up in the household as far as them going to live with, their dad as opposed to living with us. So that was a little odd, but at the same time, like, my parents were always there for us and whatever we needed. But growing up, I always felt a little uneasy. Didn't really know why. I have a vivid memory when I was probably 7 or 8 years old, looking in the mirror, wondering why my name was Bryant with a T on the end. Like, why couldn't I be Brian? Like, why can't I be normal like everybody else? And so that uneasy, not feeling kind of normal started then, right? Didn't really know why, but it was something just felt off. And I vividly remember looking in the mirror that day, like crying, looking like the not good enough.
Yeah.
And I'm different kind of started then. Why? I don't know, because everything else was seemingly pretty normal in life, It wasn't necessarily abnormal that, my brothers were living with their dad as opposed to, and it was fine. And they were my brothers and we were all brothers growing up. But somehow felt different with them. And so sports were kind of my outlet to feel, I don't know, better about myself, right? And I took that early on. And I was pretty good at sports. But that was kind of the great equalizer. Well, if my name can't be Brian, well, you know what? I'm better than you at soccer or whatever it is. And so I kind of gravitated towards that. And that was my outlet for a lot of things. And I say outlet for a lot of things, like, sure, my mom and dad had their struggles as a couple and whatnot, but what parents really kind of don't. But they never expressed it on us. Like, it never was, at us or anything bad. It was always loving towards us. My dad was always my coach and was there for everything. They'd take us on soccer trips every weekend, play travel soccer. My brother Edward did too. And so I'd be going somewhere, so dad would take me or mom or, vice versa, go with him. And So we're constantly going and playing, and they always put us first. And that kind of, them putting us first as I grew up really evolved even more, because they wanted us to go to better schools. Because in Antioch, we were zoned for, Cole Elementary and then Carter Lawrence, with the schools that just weren't as good as some of the other ones. And so they sought out ways to get us transferred to better schools, right? So my brother went to John Trotwood Moore, which is a better public school for middle school, and then Hillsboro. They got me into Aiken, which is a better elementary school, which then led me to go to MBA, right? And while I'm in all this, again, we're not well off, and then all of a sudden I start going to schools that are people who are very well off.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
so you felt even more different.
Yeah, so that Bryant with a T, is now even more so like, what's wrong and different here? But at the same time, what I don't see is the sacrifice my parents are putting into everything for us, right? So we can have a better life, so I can have a better life. But why don't I have the newest, pair of Nike shoes, or the newest soccer cleats, or the newest whatever? That's what I saw. Not, hey, you're given this opportunity to go do something and have a chance, and really, but which is tough as a kid, and it's one of those things you look back on, you're just like, golly, man, like, if I wasn't so consumed with self, right, and me, and but you can't as a kid. Like, how do you see that? I don't know how you teach that to a kid, but you do see some kids these days that just get it, and I'm so envious of them and proud of them for somehow getting it and understanding it. It's amazing. But I didn't see that, right? I didn't see that my mom, driving an 87 Oldsmobile with 300,000 miles on it was sacrifice for me to go to MBA, for her to make those payments. She had a Jaguar keychain on her keychain because that was her Jaguar payment, right? Like, could she have afforded a Jaguar? Sure, if she wasn't paying for me to go to MBA, right? But I can't, and I only hope that I have that same sacrifice for my kids one day, right? And hope that they can see that. If they don't, they don't. But I mean, that's the kind of sacrifice my mom and dad had. And it's sad that I never saw it, right?
Yeah.
So, but I didn't. And so I had these feelings inside that I'm different. I need more. Something's wrong with me. Why is my family not like your family? Why are we living in a 900 square foot house, which is the size of your bedroom, kind of thing. And so there was just this, it grew, that level of uneasiness, right? And not being good enough or different, whatever. It just kind of festered and grew, right? But again, that my outlet still was sports, right? So I ended up excelling at sports, soccer, football, specifically kicking, right? That became my thing and my path, right? And so I put everything into that basket. Right?
Sure.
Everything into the sports basket, because on a sports field, it's a level playing field, right? It doesn't matter how much money you have, nothing. All that matters, can you perform or not? And I could perform, therefore now I fit in. Now I'm in, right? So that's how I coped, right? Whether I consciously knew it or not, that's what I was doing, right?
So you found your sense of value, connection, and worth and peace in it, because you were no longer questioning your value and all that stuff.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
you finally felt like your puzzle piece was fitting in.
Yeah, 100%. Worth and peace and worth is a great way to describe it. Yeah, exactly. But then that's also what kind of led me to the wrong path as well, right? Sports, I had an injury, okay? And I get hurt my sophomore year of high school, tear my meniscus in my right knee, so you have to have surgery. And what comes with surgery? Pain pills, right? And so I guess, I mean, if you want to get into it, when I was in 7th grade, I had my first alcoholic drink, right? I loved it. I remember my oldest brother was at MTSU, and we'd go up there and hang out with him for like a night or whatever it was, me and my other brother, Edward. And I remember I had a 7-7, got drunk. I thought it was great. And I was excited to tell my friends, like I was hungover the next day, but
Yeah.
it wasn't like a fire was lit per se, but it was fun. And then ninth grade, I smoked weed for the first time with my brother Edward. It was great. Again, it wasn't like lit inside that fire from it, but I loved it. Don't get me wrong. But it wasn't until I got hurt, had the surgery, and then got the pain pills my sophomore year that I'll never forget it. It was like it was yesterday. That first one that I took. I mean, it was like I was floating on air. It was like, this is it. You're just wrapped in that velvet blanket of just good. Like, now I feel good. This is what will make me feel good all the time.
Mm.
And that's what I want. And at that moment, it was like, here it is. I found you.
That was your aha moment.
Yeah. That's the time when, like, I don't need sports now to feel that worth, and when I can feel good all the time. Right. I can have that peace from this here. However, I wasn't like hooked immediately in the sense of like, gotta have this every day. Right. There was this sense of, I need to go to college, and this is credit to NBA for this, and the kind of school that it is and whatnot. It's like, it's what you do. You go to college, right? It's a tough school, so you need to keep academics and sports going. And so I kind of had this, sports was here, drugs and stuff was down here, right? And so I kept that going, right? I was the guy that always blacked out at parties in high school, smoked weed and stuff on the weekends. Never went to school high, never did, it was always a weekend thing, but it was heavy on the weekends when I could do it. And there were pills along the way, but it wasn't an everyday thing, nothing like that. I mean, I always kept sports ahead of it, right? And the goal was to go to college. My mom had paid for college at MBA, right? She had already done that. I'm going, I got to figure out a way to go to college so she doesn't have to pay for it, right? And so, and thankfully I had that goal in mind and could do that. And I ended up doing it. I was blessed enough to get a scholarship at Vanderbilt and be able to go and kick there. And it was amazing, right? And so luckily I still had that going, but all it really was doing was kind of delaying the inevitable, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was creeping up. It was still going to happen. It was coming. So anyway, I ended up going to Vandy, right? And then my freshman year, I ended up tearing my ACL. So boom, second big injury. Get a bunch of pills from tearing your ACL, right?
Yeah.
So it's like a good and bad thing. It's like, wow, I can legally take these now, right? And so have the surgery, sort of recover pretty well, but I had some issues with my knee to where I had to have another surgery afterwards the following spring. And then leading into my sophomore year, it just, that itch for pills was getting stronger, right? I wanted to scratch it a little bit more. And so I would. So whenever somebody else on the team would have something happen to them, I mean, they give them, this is no knock on Vandy or the doctors there, whatever. They would just give them out. I mean, you could get them. Wasn't that big a deal. This is back in 2005, 2006. Like, it was prevalent, but the focus on the opioid addiction isn't like what it is today, right? So 15 years ago, it was a little more lax, right? It just wasn't there. And so you could get them. And even when I ran out, I'd say, hey, I need more. I'm still in pain. Here's another 40 or 50 of them, right? And so I didn't quite put in enough work for recovery like I should have with my knee and all that stuff. And so I ended up having a pretty tough sophomore year with it. Started drinking more even during the week. I got caught one time, actually with a drug test after practice. But again, if you're a starter, if you're playing well, even though I got caught, they called me back in like 2 weeks later. And, hey, are you going to pass now? Yeah, I'm going to pass the test now. And so, boom, there you go. Okay. But what's interesting about that whole story, though, is and I didn't. It's only looking back on it when I realized what was really going on in my head. So I got tested after practice on a Monday. I'd taken, I think, the pills on Sunday night, and then, or I was on a Tuesday, whatever it was. Anyway, I had rolled my ankle like 2 weeks prior to that. Okay, so I was still kind of injury, right? Coming off one, I was kind of hurt, and we just had a couple, the first game of the year, maybe the second game of the year. I don't remember. But anyway, 2 weeks had passed after that drug test, and I hadn't gotten a call back or anything, even though I knew I failed. But I'm like, maybe I didn't fail. But I had a bottle of pills in my hand. It was a Sunday night. I had a bottle of pills in my hand, and my roommate comes out and says, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I think I passed the test. No one called me." He's like, "Well, if you pass, what are you going to risk it for?" Why take, and I'm sitting there like staring at the bottle. Who just sits there and stares at a bottle of pills? You know what I mean? Or like is contemplating, like, no, somebody with something going on inside is, but that battle of sports addiction, that gap was starting to close. And I didn't realize that at the time. Luckily, my roommate was there, said, "Hey, man," it's because I got the phone call the next morning to come in to get retested, and I passed the test and no big deal. But looking back, that was one of those moments where it's like, hey, it's creeping up on you here.
Mm-hmm.
And so luckily I didn't then, but that trend continued throughout college, right? Heavily drinking on the weekends, blacking out, getting pills when I could, because you knew when tests were coming and when they weren't coming, so it always, but the theme of still not feeling good enough within and that worth still lingered, right? Because now I'm at Vanderbilt, right? I just went to MBA, which is a very wealthy school, obviously for high school. Now I'm at Vanderbilt, which is, I couldn't have sniffed going to Vanderbilt unless I had a scholarship. There's no way we could afford it, right? And so now I'm still in that world, but I'm not in that world per se, right?
Yeah.
But football and sports still gave me that worth, even more so because I'm a starter, I'm doing well, and now it's like, hey, look at me. But I still didn't have the, hey, let's just go to, Cabo for spring break or whatever it is, all that. Like it wasn't there. So I still had that internal struggle of not being good enough, whatever it was. But sports was the great equalizer still, right? So
Yeah.
it gave me that confidence and whatnot. But it was running out, my time at Vanderbilt was running out. And I'm coming into my senior year. Here's how much this ended up taking over, right? I'm coming into my senior year, and I'm still having some knee issues. I had scar tissue problems, right? And the way it healed and whatnot. So they'd want to clean it out and make sure it was okay. And so anyway, that summer, my knee, I mean, in reality, it feels fine. If I just went to, rehab more at the training facility, I would have been fine, right? Let's put the time in, you're going to be fine, okay? Or I could have surgery and get pills.
Right.
So you give me those options, guess what? I'm having surgery so I can get more pills.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where the trainer asked me, I'll never forget it. He's like, give me a percentage what you think you're at. I'm like, well, I think my knee's at, 85%. He's like, all right, so we're going to have surgery to get maybe 10% or something like that. Whatever, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, sure, sounds good. But in reality, and he's kind of thinking, well, whatever. But at the same time, okay, you know what I mean? We need you, so let's do it. So I had surgery on July 4th and got a bunch of pills going into senior year. And, here we go. Just kind of kept it going. And so anyways, the season goes on and whatnot. And then finally we go to a bowl game. It's the best season Vandy's had ever at that time. You know what I mean? And we've since had a couple better seasons, but few and far between there. So anyway, we go to the bowl game. We go to the New City Bowl. And night before the game, I was saying, I was hanging out with some of the equipment guys, right? Because they were the guys that were kind of around us all the time. the kicking guys, and they helped me out a lot and whatnot throughout my 4 years. And one of them had a bottle of pills by chance, right? I'm like, oh man, let me get some of those. And he just dumps a handful in my hand. It's just like, yes.
Wow.
I mean, he doesn't think anything of it. Like, it's not, whatever. But I just remember being so excited. And that night before the game, like, do I take him tonight? Well, if I take him tonight, I'm going to be up all night. But I got a game tomorrow. I mean, it was like a battle within. I ended up not taking him. And for whatever reason, for years, I told people I was high during the game and all. No, I wasn't high during the game. I just had pills for afterwards, right? But anyway, so the game happens. We end up winning. But like the most exciting part about the whole thing, and I kicked the game winner. I mean, it's like last kick of my career. It's great. It's unbelievable. But I was more excited for the after party and the fact that I had a pocket full of pills, and we all went out to Morton's, and they were giving us shots and just got hammered drunk, and it's New Year's Eve, and that's what I remember, right? And from that day forward until I went to Discovery Place in February of 2017, it was on. I mean, that's what I did. And it's sad because, I had a dream of mine was playing in the NFL, right? Like, I wanted to do it. I was a very successful kicker at Vanderbilt, and had a chance, right? There's not a lot of times like you have the door open to your dream and you got a foot in the door, right? And so the season ends, and you've got pro day that comes up in April. And if you ask me about my pro day, what do I remember most about my pro day? Well, I remember going to South Street afterwards, taking some Blue Tins and having a vodka soda on a nice spring day, right? That's what I remember. Like, that's what I remember, having them in my pocket going to pro day. Like, yeah, I didn't prepare like I should have prepared to, for a job, you know what I mean? For an NFL dream job. Did I do well at pro day? Yeah, I did okay. Did I had some looks? Yeah, sure. I got a phone call on draft day from the Jaguars. Hey, come down. But they wanted me to come down the next weekend, but that was senior week, beach week. Well, I want to go party. I want to go, cheat on my girlfriend down there. I want to go, and so I didn't like the offer. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what?
Yeah.
And then 30 seconds, like, I clue in after I got off the phone. I call my agent back. They call back, and no, it's gone. They went with some other guy.
Wow.
In like 45 seconds. Not even kidding. Because you're gonna get in the way of me doing drug. No, can't get in the way of that. But that was the mentality. That was the grit, right? So this shift, boom, and it happened. Right? It was now more important. Now I was finding my worth in pills. It made me comfortable now. That's how I had to live. And that's how I needed to live, right? I needed substance in me at this point. I no longer had this sports background, even though I could have. But it was like, I'm free now to do this. No one's testing. I'm free. I can do it. And so that's what I did. And it took a long time. It took getting sober to come to terms with that moment in my life, that time in my life that, like, I watched the kicker, like Ryan Suckup, the kicker for the Titans for a while. He was a kicker at South Carolina. I was ranked ahead of him at times, right? Like, we were the same year. And so I looked at that for years going like, wow, that should be me. But it's not, and that's okay. Yeah. Like, it wasn't meant to be. If I would have gone the NFL route and I got paid a bunch of money, I'd probably be dead. Like, in the reality of it. And I wouldn't be sitting here today with the life that I have. So I'm incredibly thankful for those moments and the way it all played out. And I'm very, very thankful for my addiction because I'm the man I am today because of it. But it was a long road to get there. But something like that, it took me a long time to accept that and come to terms with that and be okay with slamming the door on your own dream, right? At your own hand, right? It's not like someone did it on me. I did it to myself. But, it is what it is. And so from really that point on, it just got worse and worse, right? My story is like everyone else's story. It was kind of fun at first, you're free, you get a job and you've got some money, and the responsibility, fresh out of college, you're having fun, right? Drinking was fun, doing the pills was fun, but then it turns to not be fun, right? It makes that switch to where it's like, I'm doing these for fun, to now I physically need these every day. I cannot function without them. I kind of I like vividly remember one moment when it happened, when I was sitting at work. I used to work in the restaurant business. I was managing a restaurant, and I was closing up one night. I remember sitting there, and all of a sudden, like, I can't stop moving. I'm going, oh God, I'm getting these like pins and needles in my butt, and I'm sweating. I was withdrawing, but I didn't. It was the first time I'd felt a withdrawal.
Wow.
It's the first time I realized that, like, I need these. But it didn't scare me. It didn't, but it was just like, oh, I got to go get them. Yeah. Not like, oh man, I have a problem, I need to get off. No, it's like, I need to keep this train going,
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
But I remember it. I mean, I remember it sitting vividly as yesterday, and it was just one of those, like, you would think, like a normal person, hey man, might not want to do that.
Yeah.
Like, this is an issue. Also, the fact that every dollar you have coming in is going right back out, and you have no money, even though you're making good, like, something's not right here. But it didn't matter. I didn't care, because why? When I would take those, I would feel normal. I could fit in. I could have a conversation with people. It made life easier, seemingly, right? And that's what I wanted. It made me feel good within my own skin, right? And so that's what I did, and that's why I continued to do it. Right? Sports was no longer there, but these are there, and this is way easier. So let's just do that. And so that trend continued, and it got worse and worse. Obviously, I started doing more and more pills, over the years, and then it got bad to a point where I said, okay, I need to do something, and so I tried the geographical change. Right? Let's move. If I move out of Nashville, I'll be fine. Right? And not only that, let's get a job that, like, you have to work literally all the time. So you can't do anything other than work. So I thought the bright idea of, well, sports, right? Football. Let's become a graduate assistant, with football. And so I went to Mississippi State. I knew I had some connections with Dan Mullen down there when he was there. And so in 2012, I went down to Mississippi State to be a graduate assistant. I don't know if you know much about graduate assistants, but it is a thankless position. You don't make any money. You're in school, and you're literally working 100 hours a week. I mean, it is. We slept at the facility half the time. Like, it's you eat it, you breathe it, you drink. It's all football all the time, and it is absolutely miserable if you don't love football, like, to your core, right? And if you take someone who is an addict, who is coming off of pills and whatnot, and trying to get out of that world, and you put them into this, it is a recipe for disaster. But in my mind, this is great, because you're removed from Nashville, you're removed from all this.
Yeah.
Start over, start new. No one knows, right? All they know is you're a successful kicker in college, and you know how to coach kickers. Great. So here we go. So go down there and do that, and I was good at it. I could coach kickers. Like, it's something I always did along the way over the years. I had some kids here and there, high school kids and whatnot. And Coach Mullen was great in the sense of just letting me coach those guys, and that part was fun. But I was miserable. Like, the definition of irritable, restless discontent. I mean, just absolutely. You take that away from me, the drugs away from me. You take my solution away from me, and just leave me with me.
Yeah.
Oh, God. I mean, it was awful. Like, I started drinking more, and for a while I was like, oh no, I got sober during that time. No, I just smoked weed every day, because they didn't drug test us. So I smoked weed, and I drank a lot more then. I mean, it's like, Oh, but I'm not doing pills. Things are good. Life is good. I was insane down there. I mean, it was awful. Um, there were some fun times too. Don't get me wrong. Like being in the SEC West and doing some of that, being on the coaching staff with. I mean, it was cool, right? There were some really fun memories from being down there.
Mm-hmm.
But it got to be too much. You know, going into year 2, I was getting promoted to defensive GA and all this stuff, and we had a month long off that you could come home. And even though it was a month off, it wasn't a month off. It's like, hey, you need to do a bunch of film study and all this stuff. When I came back to Nashville for that month, and guess what? It was on. I didn't do anything work-wise. All I did was, found my pills and went right back to it. Hadn't missed a beat. And we report back down there. It's like mid-July when we report, and I remember going down. I walked into Mullen's office and quit. I was like, because I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I was going to let him down. I was going to let me down. I couldn't do it. He couldn't understand why, but he saw my dad's really good friends with him, and my dad's good friends with his father-in-law, and so we're still in touch with him, and his wife and all that. His wife used to babysit me when I was little, so it's kind of an odd connection. Yeah, how it all kind of comes together. And he was coaching at Florida when I was at Vandy, and so anyway, he didn't really understand. He just saw pain in my eyes, but he didn't understand. He knew that like me walking away was hard, but at the same time, the right thing to do. Just because he saw something in my eyes, but he didn't know what or why. I never really understood it until years later. Once I went to treatment and got sober, then we told him, and it made a lot more sense to him then. And he's glad that I'm sober now and did that and walked away from it. But anyway, I couldn't do anything, man. I couldn't. It just consumed me at that point in life. Yeah. It had already taken over, but it really had that hold on me inside. Like I was lost without it, but with it, I was even more lost, kind of thing. And so I moved back to Nashville, and it just crashed and burned. That's when it just got dark. It was nothing good, right? Just working in the restaurant business. Everything I made went straight to drugs and alcohol, just in debt, stealing from my grandmother, my mom, my friends I was living with. It got bad. It went dark. The fun was gone. The fun had been gone for like, a couple years, but it was now in that period of like, you're either going to die or you're going to finally hit your rock bottom, right? Or you're going to end up in jail. One of the 3 things is going to happen, right? Yep. It was at that point of where it was, hold on, and it was constant, trying to quit with Suboxone, right? You can do this, and then, crying on the way home. You did this again. How'd you do it again? And it was rinse and repeat every day. And I ended up living at my mom's house in my niece's room, above the garage, where it's like a twin bed with Barbie sheets on it. That's, sweat stained brown now, just filth. It's about, and I'm 29 years old. You know, what are we doing, man? Like, I didn't just graduate from college, got to live at home while I get, my feet underneath me here. No, man, it's like, it's bad. And so it's getting to that point. It's coming to a head, but it's not quite there yet. I'm still kind of fighting it. And so anyway, I move in with another friend of mine, which this was just, he's an alcoholic too. So we move in together, and first month, my mom has to bail me out with rent in the first month. Second month, they went ahead and like just processed the check. So like I didn't have the money in my account, but they just went ahead and did it, I guess. Yeah. Third month, the sheriff shows up at the door. So, yeah, right, yeah. So, and my other roommate had already gone to treatment at Cumberland Heights, so it's like, it was not good. So this happens. The way it all kind of went down, I was at my mom's house. My stepdad got a call from the sheriff, and it's like, you got to get out by Sunday or Monday, whatever it was. This was Saturday or Friday. It was Friday. But it all came to a head, right? So I I go over to the house on Sunday. I called a good friend of mine, a good friend of yours, Philip. I called him. I had met him working at J. Alexander's about 3 years prior to this.
Mm-hmm.
And from the moment we met, he saw himself in me, right? And
Yeah.
he calls me out then, and he just constantly worked on me, right? Golf was a thing that we had in common, but he constantly tried to help me out. And I hadn't talked to him probably a year at this point. But that Sunday, I picked up the phone and I called him. And like Philip does, he answers the phone, like any person in recovery does. He answers the phone when somebody calls, right? And he answers the phone. He says, okay. I said, no, man, I'm not. And I was like, I need help. And he says, okay. And he goes, I'm at dinner. I'll call you back. I said, okay. He calls him back. He gets in touch with my family and whatnot, gets in touch with people at Discovery Place. That's on Sunday night. I go to his house Monday night. He said, come over, have dinner, whatever. And then Tuesday I checked in on February 22nd, 2017. So thankful for people in recovery, right? And people like Philip, because I hadn't talked to him, you know what I mean? He didn't have to do anything for me,
Yeah.
But I was done. I was down and out. The other part of that story. So it was probably 2 years prior to that. Philip had given me a piece of paper that he wrote on it, sick and tired of being sick and tired. At the time, I'm like, whatever, dude. You know what I mean? One of those whatever.
Yeah.
That Sunday, I found that piece of paper in my old wallet in my car.
Wow.
And you know what I mean? And so I have it today, still framed, and it sits on my nightstand.
Yeah, that's really
cool. Constant. Yeah, and so it was like one of those that, like, talk about a kick in the teeth, but it was like I saw it and it just was like, ugh. And so, like, when I made that phone call, when I checked into Discovery Place, it was just like this, honestly, it was like a weight lifted. It was like, I just can't do it anymore. Like, I can't. And a lot of it too, like, I held on to a lot of it while I couldn't do it. Like, I never went to treatment or anything before, and I'm 29, right? But a lot of it was because in my head, I went to MBA. I went to Vanderbilt. Oh, you were a kicker. Oh, the stigma in my mind of being judged, and it doesn't happen to guys like me. It doesn't happen to people like me.
Yeah.
Yes, it does, but it's okay. Like,
that's right.
It happens to everybody. But I think that's an issue that a lot of people have. That it's not supposed to happen to a guy or a girl like me or whatever it is. But it does. It can happen to anybody. It doesn't matter where you're from, what you do, who you are, your parents are. Nothing. It doesn't judge anything. And when it gets a hold of you, it gets a hold of you. And when you need help, you need help. And the only way to get better is to ask for help. And that's a very, very difficult thing to do. But my goodness, when I finally truly asked for help, because I had asked for help before, but it's money, whatever it is, like,
right.
When I really finally asked for help, God, did it feel good. I mean, was it the hardest thing I've probably ever had to do in my life? Yeah. Just that one step, right? But when I truly meant it, was it a relief? It was like I could breathe again, right? It was like, it's okay. I'm exposed. And guess what? No one's judging me. Everybody's saying, okay, yeah, come on, man. Let's go do this. No one was mad. No one was upset. It was we've been waiting for you. Now come on, we'll show you how to do it. And it was unbelievable, that sense of open arms from people that just, hey, come on, we're going to take care of you. You're going to have to do a little bit of work, but you're going to be okay. And that's what happened, right? You just kind of get to work, Yeah, sure, you go through the withdrawals and all that stuff. That stuff ends. It passes, whatever. It's a blip on the radar. At the time, it kind of sucks, but you're done and over. And you just kind of get to work. And it's not hard work. It seems like it's hard work, right? Especially at first. It's like, got all this stuff to do, this mountain to climb. And it's like, the old cliche, how do you climb a mountain? Well, one step at a time, right? Well, that's what you do. It's like I just started doing one thing at a time. That's it. And then when I felt something weird or, I would talk about it. And then somebody said, "Oh, I felt that before too, man. Hey, here's what I did to deal with it." And we just like, wow, all right, cool. So you just continue to ask for help and continue to be open and talk and do it. And one thing leads to another and you start feeling better. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting there like, wow, I'm not sweating under my armpits. Like I can walk into a room and I can talk to people and I don't have anything in me, right? Like I'm me. This is, I filled the God-sized hole within me, right? Piece by piece and started filling up. You start getting comfortable with yourself and being who you are and you have energy again, you have drive and you want to do right things in life and you want to, be the man you can be, right? And do the right thing. And in reality, it's just doing the right thing, right? Am I going to wake up every day? Am I going to just do what's right? Somebody asks me a question, am I going to tell them the truth or not? Am I going to, ask for help, ask for forgiveness, whatever it is? And it's very little things. And it's amazing to me that you kind of look at it and you go, man, that's all I've had to do this whole time and I'd have been okay. But like, I don't know that stuff. I don't innately know that. I had to learn it. Right. It wasn't because my parents didn't teach me or something. Oh, God, they were showing me the whole time, but I couldn't see it. I couldn't understand it. I was too consumed with myself, and how selfish I was, instead of seeing what others were trying to do for me and or helping others. Right. And so, I get fascinated about people that just know how to do that. Right. You run into people in life and they didn't go through some program or whatever it is, but they're just
good people.
It's just what they do,
Yeah.
And you're going, how do you know that? Who taught you that? It's a head scratcher kind of thing. Because it took me 30 years to figure it out. Not figure it out, but, have someone kind of, tell me. And it's been great. I spent, let's see, so February 22nd, 2017, I stayed there for 3 months at the treatment center, and then started working there for 9 months afterwards, which was great because, I learned from guys who were in recovery, and then I got to help guys who are new into recovery, and they helped me out because I got to see them, and it's a beautiful thing the way it works there. And so I worked there for about 9 months, and then it was like, and I did little things along the way, right? So I was living in a halfway house out there, and it's okay. I don't want my parents to pay for my living, right? So how does that happen? Well, if you get into a senior peer role or a house manager role, your rent gets discounted and all that stuff. And so I found my way into a house manager role. So they're not paying my rent anymore. Okay, I don't want them to pay my car insurance. So I just started trying to figure out one thing at a time, just, getting myself on my feet. And it's funny how you can make $8 an hour working part-time and make that money last a lot more than when I was making, 50,000 waiting tables and I was negative,
Yeah.
Um,
Yes. Yeah.
It's funny how, when you're doing the right thing, you can make it work.
Life a lot more simple and still be happy.
Yeah. And it went from, it's interesting you said that because it's like, you write down what are your wants versus needs in life, right? And so my wants at the beginning of treatment, let's say I would have written down who knows what, okay, these grand things that I want. Well, along the way in sobriety, it has been what I need has been provided, right? So my wants and my outlook on life as far as my wants go, it's totally changed. I want what I need now, right? And so, and those all along the way, it's just kind of been provided for me, right? Like, I mean, sure, would I love to have a, 2020 F-150? Yeah, sure, but I don't need it. You know what I mean? I don't. And all along the way, that what I need has been provided, and I can't attribute that to myself. The only thing I can attribute to is just kind of doing the right thing. but somebody's looking out for me, right? And has been the whole time. And that's my higher power, and there's no question about it. And it's just kind of grown, right? And sobriety's been great. You know, it's been tough at times, but life is tough at times, right? So I was 4 months sober, and this is the reality of addiction. Okay, I was 4 months sober. My brother Edward, who was 3 years older than me, just like me. Okay, probably a better athlete than I was, but his struggle got him sooner than it got me. Right, it got him in high school. And just carried on. Him and I had quite a few conversations while I was at treatment, and we probably talked more in that 4 months than we had in a few years. Okay.
Wow.
And I got to tell him I loved him, and I told him, you know, hey man, when you're ready, and I know how hard it is to say, you know, I'm ready, I need help. I was like, but when you are, we'll show you how to do it, right? Anyway, 4 months in, he had moved into the room that I was living in at my mom's house. Before I went to treatment, which was a step in the right direction because he was living in hotels and stuff. But he moves in that room. Anyway, you know, he overdoses and dies in that room. And so my mom found him. I mean, it's as bad as it gets, right?
Yeah.
But that's what happens. It's the reality of it. He didn't want to die. He didn't want to go out that way. But he wasn't there. He wasn't ready to get help. You know, he hadn't hit it yet. And it's like, I wish I could have just grabbed him and put him in it. But if he's not ready, it's the worst part about this whole thing. Like, if you're not there, it's not going to happen. There is solace in the fact that he doesn't have that mental prison struggle daily anymore. You know, he's got that relief. And I understand that. It's harder for anyone who's not in it to understand that. You know, but it sucks. It hurts. It always will hurt. It still hurts. You know, and the family still struggles with it. It's part of it. But during that time, it's like, I don't have to go back out. I don't have to. And why? The community around us. That happened, and everybody was there. Right? Yeah. How can we help? How can we help your family? People showed up at the funeral, the whole thing. So getting sober, it's a beautiful thing on a number of levels. But that's the reality of it. You either get sober, or you die. Lucky ones go to treatment or really jail, or we die. And that's the unfortunate part of it, but it's the reality of it. Doesn't have to be that way, but unfortunately, it's what happens quite a bit. And I know you've seen it countless times. I've seen it, you know, hits home with me and my family, but I know plenty of guys and women have died from it. And it's sad. It's very sad.
It really is. You know, I wanted to well, first of all, gosh, so many powerful parts of your story. And again, thank you for sharing all of that, because, you know, I think it's through sharing our stories that, just like you said, you know, Philip, your friend, our friend, you know, getting open and honest with you is something that opened that door for you later to get help. And I truly think it's the miracle of recovery and sharing the wreckage of our past, the baggage, and healing that opens that door for the power of recovery to be transmitted to others. And I wanted to highlight one thing you said that I think is so important, that you said, you know, I asked for help initially, but it wasn't just in the initial asking for help that continued my trajectory of changing. I had to keep asking for help, because once we go to treatment and get sober, it's not done. It's just walking through the door. And there's so much we don't know when we get into sobriety. I mean, you can take a high functioning addict that has been running a Fortune 500 company, whatever, and you take the substances away, and it's like, I gotta learn how to do life the way people do, by being honest with myself, by just making regular daily choices to do the right thing or to do anything, because I don't have something driving me to feel good enough to do those things anymore.
Right.
I've actually got to make those decisions, you know, and so much of that is stuff we got to learn from other people who've gone before us, and we only get that from asking for help. So I really appreciate you speaking to that, because I think that will help a lot of people.
It was like a learned behavior almost, you know, like initially, but then I had to like kind of continue to learn how to ask for help, right? It's like, it's okay to ask, you know, but and then you get more comfortable asking for help, but it takes some effort at first, you know?
You know, it's funny. I personally, I'm almost 10 years into recovery now, and that hasn't stopped for me. Like I still have to, you know, and sometimes life and circumstances give you a kick in the pants, and you know, because we start taking our will back, or thinking I got this or whatever, and but it's never failed that I have to continue asking for help, because life keeps throwing me curveballs that I don't know how to handle, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So the kind of to wrap this up, I wanted to ask you, you know, what would you say to somebody in your shoes that's listening right now, or similar to your shoes that's listening right now, that may not be, or maybe toying around with the thought of asking for help or what have you? If you could just, you know, say one thing to that person that's on the threshold and contemplating, what would that be?
That it's going to be okay. You know, if you take the step, and it's going to be okay. Because I didn't think it was, right? For whatever reasons I had in my own mind, whether it was I was going to be judged or I can't do it or whatever it is, like it's going to be okay. It'll work out. As hard as it is to do it, it will be better, and it gets better. And it's hard to grasp that and see that then, but if you do it, I promise you it'll get better.
Yeah, I think to elaborate on that too, one thing that we have this illusion is that I need to be able to wrap my mind around it before I put one foot in front of the other or make the decision and step through the threshold. And the fact of the matter is that you don't, and you won't understand it. And it's going to have to be faith over fear, that fear of what will I feel like? Am I going to feel okay? Can I feel joy again? What's life going to be like without substances? You're never going to get to that place where you are able to wrap your mind around what it's going to feel like or anything. You just have to get fed up enough and decide, I'm putting that foot in front of the other, and you know, like they say, one step at a time, right?
And just jump. You got to go for it. I mean, in 3.5 years, I went from having no money, in debt, you know, homeless, essentially, living in a halfway house. I just bought my own house in the beginning of September.
That's so awesome.
You know what I mean? Like, it can happen, and it does happen, and there's countless stories like that. And it'll happen for you too, if you just do it and give it a chance. I still don't know why it's happened or how it happened. I don't care anymore. But as long as I keep going, one foot in front of the other, it works out. So,
Well, thank you again, Bryant. And just for the record, I think that your name is pretty cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's Bryant with the T, you know, hard T at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Lastly, I just want to mention to anybody that may be reaching out for, or need to reach out for help, we've got information scrolling at the bottom of the screen, website, helpline. Also, I'd encourage you, if you're, you know, if you're just wanting to stick your toe in the pool of 12-step recovery or any other type of modality, you can do a quick Google search and find meetings in your area, because they happen regularly all over the world. And so I can speak for both Bryant and I that we would encourage you to take that step and reach out for help. Don't wait, because you are not promised tomorrow. And with that, I will say thank you all for watching, and remember to be